Hello coin collectors out there, welcome back to the Big D Coins channel. Hopefully everyone is having a great day as always. In today's video we are going to look at these coins that I've got lined up right here in the center. We have a 1945, a 1945, and guess what? Another 1945 Mercury dime. In this video we'll talk about how many of these Mercury dimes were made. Yes, they were made at both the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco Mint. They were made at all three mints. We'll talk about the metal content of these coins. They have silver in them, but unfortunately, they're not a very big coin. So the silver melt value of the coin is going to be kind of lower than you might expected. We'll also talk about what these are selling for in average condition and what they're selling for very highly graded coins. The full band's 1945 Mercury dime is one of the hardest Mercury dimes out there to find. So we'll talk about the kind of very high auction results for that 1945 full band's Mercury dime. And of course, we'll talk about any error coins associated with the year 1945. Let's quickly explain why I've got the Barber dime at the top. So the Barber dime is the dime coin that was used prior to the Mercury dime. The Barber dime was made from 1892 up until the year 1916. And then starting in 1916 and going all the way up until 1945, we had the Mercury dime. Then after 1945, starting in 1946, we had the Roosevelt dime. Roosevelt passed away in 1945. So the following year, they decided to put his image on the dime coin. Now, I've got three that are in kind of various conditions right here. Let's quickly talk about the different conditions of the Mercury dime. For the Mercury dime, the ones that I'm going to talk about are in the fine condition. So that's a 12, very fine, 20, extra fine, mint state 60, mint state 63, and mixed state 65. I'm using those specific grades because that's what the Red Book guide breaks it out. The Red Book is one of the references that I'll be using in this video. The other references are the PCGS price guide, which you can find online if you Google PCGS price guide for Mercury dimes. I'll also be using the Cherry Pickers guide. The Red Book and the Cherry Pickers guide are both books that you have to buy. To my knowledge, those are not available online for free like the PCGS price guide is. Now let's quickly talk about the average condition one. So an average condition one might be a fine 12. So the 12 is out of 70. A 70 would be a perfectly struck, uncirculated Mercury dime. And here's what a fine 12 grade will look like. The coin shows moderate even wear over the entire surface of the coin. The primary design elements are bold. All lettering, legends, and date are clear and readable. So we can see that it's got a little bit of this like orange stuff that's on all of my Mercury dimes that I got in one specific tube for some reason, but that's all right. So this one up here would probably get, all three of these would probably get that fine designation, as we've got moderate yet even wear on the coin. We can see all the design elements are bold, the lettering and the legends, we can see those clearly as well as the date. So would we look up to a very fine 20? Here's what a very fine is described as, and then we'll get into the prices. I don't want to bore you too much with the different grading of these coins, but it's important to understand the basics of grading them so you can determine the value of them. A very fine 20 shows moderate to minor wear exists only on the highest parts of the design, where a slight faintness is beginning to show. The overall condition of the coin is pleasing and attractive. So these are going to be probably somewhere in between that 20 and 12 grade. Now let's talk about the prices of them. For a fine 12, these are going to be worth $2.75. For a very fine 20, $3. For EF 40, $3.25. Then we get into the mint state grades. Mint state 60, so that's a lower end mint state coin, will be worth $6. A mint state 63 will be worth 12, and a mint state 65 will be worth 28. 28 for the Philadelphia, 26 for the Denver, and 30 for the San Francisco Mint. So we can see that those mint state coins, these 60 to 65 graded coins, are going to sell for a decent amount of money, $6 to $30 or so. I'll flip it over in case you guys aren't familiar with the reverse design of this coin. Now let's start talking about the metal content of the coin. As I mentioned in the intro, yes, these are silver coins. Unfortunately, though, the total weight of the coin themselves is only 2.5 grams. So at 90% silver, 10% copper, the current melt value on these coins is $1.31. So at the very, very rock bottom, these should be selling for at least $1.31. Given that they're dime coins, only worth 10 cents, that's a nice return on your investment if you can pull these out of circulation, which some people are still able to do, but these ones are very hard to find in circulation still, just because few of them have survived, but they are still out there. You can people will still pull these out. You see those videos on YouTube of coin roll hunting dimes. People are still able to find these. Wartime nickels are much more common, as well as 1964, 1960s quarters. And the quarters are larger coins, so they'll have a higher melt value to them. All right, so that's the metal content. Let's talk about what these are selling for at auction. Now, first we'll talk about the non-full bands designation, and then we'll get into the full bands designation. So what they're selling for, there was one that recently, in October of 2019, so relatively recently, sold at a heritage auction, which was graded by PCGS at 69. That sold for $600. So that sold for quite a lot of money. A PCGS graded coin would probably sell higher, but that one was graded by NGC. PCGS generally has kind of stricter grading to them. So if you get it graded by PCGS and it grades that high, it would sell for even more. PCGS has a price guide for the non-full bands designation for a 67. They have a price guide of $70 for a 66. They have a price guide of $35. And that's kind of right in line with the Red Book price guides, which had a price of $30. PCGS says they're going to be worth around $35. So good kind of consistency there. Now let's talk about that full bands designation, because that is very, very important. And we'll get into the PCGS rarity and survival estimates for the full bands coin once I zoom in and kind of explain what we're looking at on the reverse side of the coin right here. So what we are looking at, this reverse design has what we see in the middle is called the fasces. So a fasces is a bound bundle of wooden rods, and sometimes including an axe with its blade emerging. So that's what we see. That's exactly what we see on the reverse side of the coin right here. Now, for your coin to be worth a lot of money, you want to get that full bands designation. Now I'll zoom in the best I can. But see, these are bands going across the fasces. In order to get the full bands designation, you'll actually have to see these split. So in between, these are actually two bands going across right here. And to get that full bands designation, you need to see a split in the bands. There's a band on the top, middle, and bottom. And all of them, we can see on the bottom right here, this one showed at one point that kind of split right there. And the key that we need to know about these split bands right here is that you can have a uncirculated coin, a coin that has never been touched in circulation, and it still might not have that full bands designation. That's because the coin has to be struck very well in order to get that full bands, full split bands designation. So not all coins are struck with the same quality. It's important to get that it needs to be struck well. So just wanted to emphasize that you can get a coin that's in a mint state uncirculated condition and it still not have that full bands designation to it. Let's get into the prices of those full bands Mercury dimes from 1945. And this is when it really starts to get exciting. PCGS has a price guide for a mint state 67 plus full bands designation at $95,000. And guess what? One actually sold in 2019 for $90,000. One sold in 2018 for $96,000. So those $95,000 price guide is kind of, it looks like a pretty good estimate. If one's selling for 96, one's selling for 90, and they've only graded two of them at that 67 plus. When we look for the rarity and survival estimates of the 1945 full bands Mercury dime, at all grades, there's an estimated survival estimate of 400 of them. At a mid-state 65 or better, PCGS only estimates that there's only 100 of them that they have 100 of them have survived at the mid-state 65 or better for that 1945. When we go down the PCGS price guide, we get into the mid-state 66 for the full bands. That's got a price guide of $18,000. Only 19 of those have been graded by PCGS. And so we should mention the coin mintages as well. So only 19 of those have been graded. That is for the Philadelphia Mint. And the total mintage on the Philadelphia Mint were 159 million. There are 40 million made at the Denver Mint and 41 million made at the San Francisco Mint. So let's quickly take another look at the three Mercury dimes that I've got right here, which are dated 1945. So we had this one right here, which we have been looking at for a while. We had this one, 1945. Now that W that you see on the obverse, that is not a mint mark. That is the designer's initials. His last name started with a W. And then we've got this 1945 as well. So we see a Denver Mint in the center there, and then we have Philadelphia Mint coins on either sides. All right, everyone, that's all I've got for you for today. Thank you very much, everyone. If you're still watching at this point, please do hit subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much, everyone, and best of luck coin collecting out there. Enjoy.